What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Tollax here, back with another reaction video. Today we're gonna be looking at how in the world did ASAP Rocky beat this case, going all the way back to November of 2021. And I would truly appreciate if y'all could like, comment, share, subscribe. Current goal this year is 600 subscribers, and overall goal this year is 1,000 subscribers and more. So all of that would be appreciated for the channel and of course for me. But without further ado, we're going to be looking at how this whole case that A$AP Rocky was in, he somehow was able to walk free.
Now, A$AP Rocky just beat the case he went to trial for. But how did he manage to walk free despite the allegations? This case has been one of the most high-profile trials in hip-hop recently. I actually made a video on it over 2 weeks ago, covering the charges, the courtroom drama, and the stakes for Rocky's career. For the past 3 weeks, the tension has been at an all-time high. After all, we're talking about A$AP Rocky, a very popular rapper in hip-hop. And on top of that, his wife is Rihanna, one of the most famous musicians on the planet, who also happens to be a billionaire. So with all eyes on Rocky, how did he manage to beat these serious charges? Let's break it down. This is what A$AP Rocky, whose real name is Terrell Efron, was claiming. According to Rocky, the incident took place on November 6, 2021 at around 10:20 p.m. near Vista Del Mar and Selma Avenue in Los Angeles. It started as a conversation between two former friends. Rocky and Rocky, both longtime members of the A$AP mob, quickly turned into something much more serious. The two had reportedly been friends for over 14 years, but the tension between them had been building up for some time. That night, they allegedly agreed to meet near the W Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard to talk things out. Now, what happened that night? Well, according to Rocky's claims, the meeting escalated quickly. Surveillance footage shows that when Rocky arrived, Rocky was already waiting for him, accompanied by two individuals identified as A$AP Ills and
wow, this is crazy. The defendant was with two other individuals. The victim was familiar with Elijah, Elanger, aka Bills, and Jamel Phillips. Okay, all right.
and A$AP 12. Rocky alleged that Rocky immediately became aggressive, confronting him and grabbing him by the collar of his sweatshirt. Ills attempted to break things up, trying to de-escalate the situation, but things only got worse. Then came the most serious allegation. Rocky claimed that A$AP Rocky pulled out a black semi-automatic handgun and pressed it against his chest and threatened to kill him. Rocky stated that after the initial confrontation, Rocky put the gun back in his waistband and walked away. However, Rocky continued to follow him, still trying to resolve the issue. That's when, according to Rocky turned around and fired a shot at him from approximately 16 feet away. Rocky said that he then felt a sudden pain in his left hand and realized his knuckles had been grazed by a bullet. After the shot was fired, surveillance footage allegedly captured Rocky fleeing the scene with A$AP 12 following close behind. Now, in court, prosecutors argue that surveillance footage backed up parts of Rocky's version of events, showing the physical altercation and Rocky moving behind, one of A$AP Rocky's associates to shield himself. Cameras on Vista Del Mar Avenue captured the sound of two gunshots, further supporting the claim that shots were in fact fired. We're going to get to the contradiction of that later on, okay? Rocky then provided two cartridge casings to the police, which he claimed he found at the scene about 52 minutes after the shooting. Based on this, prosecutors argued that there was enough evidence to proceed with the case, alleging that A$AP Rocky was guilty of assault with a firearm.
Find the defendant, Rakeem Mayers, not guilty.
Wow.
So those were the charges that Rocky was up against, okay? And all this was based on A$AP Rocky's claims. And this is what
I'm not gonna lie, guys. Based on what he's saying so far in the video, this sounds so serious that it's not even funny, to the point where it took a miracle. I feel like this case right here, it took a miracle for A$AP Rocky to be found not guilty. When you really look into it, based on the evidence and how this whole incident went down back in November, what he said, 6 of 2021. Yeah.
What made this case so significant, right? Rocky's testimony was the prosecution's strongest piece of evidence. In fact, his account of events made up the bulk of their argument against Rocky. With no physical injuries beyond a graze wound and no recovered firearm, the entire case essentially depended on whether or not the jury believed Rocky's story. And that's something I wasn't really able to see initially when I dove into the story. But as the trial continued, it was evidently clear that A$AP Rocky was a horrible witness. The court essentially saw him as a combative, evasive, and not so credible witness overall. Now,
Damn.
ASAP Rocky's defense tailored their story based on the evidence, which was the following: a grainy video showing that ASAP Rocky
Oh
appeared to
no.
use a firearm, along with audio witness testimony of what sounded like gunshots. However, one of the biggest questions in this trial was the gun itself, or rather, the lack of one. Despite the serious nature of the allegations, no firearm was ever recovered, and that became a major point of contention between the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution insisted that a real semi automatic firearm was used and that ASAP Rocky intentionally fired at Relly
Oh.
during their altercation. They relied heavily on Relly's testimony, where he in fact claimed that Rocky pointed a gun at him before walking away. When he shouted at Rocky, Rocky allegedly pulled the gun again and held it in the air. On top of that, a woman testified that she witnessed the shooting from the 7th floor of an apartment building. She said she saw a man fire a gun and then noticed someone go down. However, she wasn't sure if anyone was actually hit, which created some ambiguity in her testimony. And the prosecution, they presented the case as a clear-cut shooting incident, arguing that Rocky fired a real gun at Relly even though they never presented an actual
Oh
firearm as
no.
evidence. Now, the defense countered this argument by pointing out a major contradiction. If the prosecution was so confident that Rocky used a real gun, then where the hell was the damn gun? Their case relied on a different narrative. ASAP 12, who was with Rocky that night, testified that the gun was a prop from a music video set and that it only fired blanks. Another defense witness also stated that Relly knew the gun was fake and that the incident had been blown out of proportion. Defense attorneys suggested that Relly exaggerated the story for financial gain as he was pursuing a civil lawsuit against Rocky. In an
Wow.
unexpected move, Rocky's own lawyer, Joe Tacopina, admitted that Rocky was in fact the one caught on camera firing shots. But rather than denying it, the defense ended up flipping the argument, saying that the gun was a prop, okay, and not a real firearm.
Oh, see, that's another thing too, bro. Because when you have a gun like that, it sometimes it identifies a prop where, for example, it could be like literally a fake gun, whereas it's not real bullets in it or not, stuff like that. So that's what you really have to consider too, considering that this there was guns involved, because sometimes guns are used for props, whether it's for any type of filming, whether you're doing a movie or music video. You know, that's another thing. Now that I think about it.
A key distinction that could change how the jury saw the case. At the heart of this trial was one major contradiction, and the defense finessed it to their advantage. The prosecution swore up and down that Rocky used a real gun, claiming that he intentionally fired at Relly. But here's the problem: they never found a gun. No weapon, no forensic proof, nothing. With no
What? You telling me there was no weapons found? Are you serious, bro?
firearm present in court, no forensic evidence proving real bullets were fired, and two completely
Wow.
different stories, the jury had just enough reasonable doubt. And this is where the narrative flipped entirely, because Relly wasn't just seen as a victim anymore. He started looking like someone trying to play the system for his own
Oh, nah.
benefit. The more the trial progressed, the more his claims started to lose weight. The prosecution had built their entire case around his testimony, but as each day passed, it became crystal clear that words alone weren't enough to convict Rocky, because the gun was never found. The physical proof of a shooting didn't exist. And then the witnesses who confirmed
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that, bro. He had the freaking chips and bananas in. I just wanted to make that point. It was funny. It was funny. Okay.
a real firearm was used, that was only Relly, right? And the defense ended up taking full advantage of this. They didn't need to make the jury believe Rocky did nothing wrong. They just had to make them question if the prosecution had truly proven their case, which they hadn't. And it was all based on what one guy said. And that's when they acknowledged that Rocky fired a weapon, but they reframed the entire situation. Instead of denying the event altogether, they painted it as something entirely different than what Relly claimed: a
Wow.
prop gun, a misunderstanding, an exaggerated accusation made worse by personal motives, specifically Relly's civil lawsuit against Rocky. And at that point, the case wasn't just about whether a shot was
Wow.
fired, it was about whether the jury could be certain that Rocky fired a real gun. And with every unanswered question, that certainly kept slipping away. And the prosecution, they were running out of ground to stand on. Without a weapon, without bullet casings, and without corroborating evidence beyond one man's word, their case had no foundation at all. And by the way, those supposed bullet casings Relly claimed to have found, that was another major problem, okay? He actually ended up taking 2 days before reporting the incident to authorities. And when he finally did, he brought with him 2 shell casings that he said he retrieved from the scene. But here was the issue, right? When police responded to the initial reports of a shooting, they didn't find any shell casings
Damn.
at all. Relly claimed he returned hours later with his girlfriend and knew exactly where to look, but there was zero surveillance footage to support that claim. And then there was
Oh
the
my
medical
gosh.
situation. Relly was never admitted to a hospital in Los Angeles after the alleged shooting. Instead, he flew back to New York and sought treatment after the fact, something that made his injury seem less urgent and more questionable. At that point, the defense flipped it on him completely, suggesting that he planted the shell casings to frame Rocky. And with all these inconsistencies, the prosecution's case wasn't adding up, and that's all it took, because the jury wasn't asked to determine what probably happened. They were asked to decide whether Rocky was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And with every hole in the prosecution's case, that doubt became impossible to ignore. We did have one surveillance camera that picked up gunshots, but only the sound, no visuals. Another
Wow.
partially caught a scuffle before the shooting, but nothing was conclusive. The main footage, blurry, distant, and far from definitive. There also was
Facts.
text messages, and these were reviewed by the
Wow.
court. It was messages Relly had sent before and after the incident, where he seemed more focused on getting paid than seeing Rocky prosecuted. But when confronted about this, Relly claimed that the messages were fake. At that point, the prosecution's case were falling apart.
Oh
Nothing
snap.
was airtight, just claims, contradictions, and missing evidence. And just like that, it was over. After weeks of testimony, ASAP Rocky was found not guilty on all charges. When the not guilty verdict
Still
was
can't believe this.
delivered, the packed courtroom erupted, and Rocky was very happy, telling the
Who
jury
wouldn't
as
be?
they left, "Thank y'all for saving my life. You're making the right decision." From the beginning, the
Wow.
prosecution's case was shaky at best because no gun was ever recovered, no forensics tied Rocky to a real firearm. The only direct witness against him was Relly, who had a pending lawsuit against him, and when the defense got
Damn.
Relly caught up in multiple contradictions, it was a wrap. Even the prosecution seemed to lose faith in their case, throwing in a last-minute plea deal that would have sent Rocky to jail for just 6 months, a weak
Damn.
offer considering they were originally pushing for 20 years. Rocky laughed it off and took his
Ooh.
chances in court, and it ended up working for him. With this trial behind him,
Mm.
Rocky's wasted no time moving forward. He's set to drop his first solo album since 2018. He's headlining
Oh
Rolling
snap.
Loud and is even starring in a Spike Lee film later this year. Meanwhile, the prosecution
And speaking of albums, guys, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like my friend told me this one day. He said, "Yo, bro, you should start doing freaking music reactions and stuff and listening to the latest albums." I'm gonna consider that, you know. But then again, since it's going on YouTube, I have to be careful of the copyright stuff. I don't mind doing it, but it's just like I'm a risk. It's also me doing the risk as well for y'all. Trust me, I don't mind doing the reaction videos to music because I like reacting to videos and music as well. I don't mind doing it. But if I'm uploads on YouTube, I just have to be aware that it's going to definitely be copyright. But it depends if my video is going to like get demonetized, whatever. And don't get it twisted. I like doing YouTube. YouTube is fun, you know. But I'm just going to consider that stuff while I'm doing, especially copyrighted content, you know.
was left scrambling, claiming that fame didn't put Rocky above the law, but at the end of the day, the jury simply didn't believe them. I didn't honestly think this was going to be the outcome at first, but looking
Me
back,
too.
it actually makes sense, right? Relly was a terrible witness, like terrible, unreliable, emotional, and completely lacking self-control. At one point, by the way,
Wow.
he even snapped at Rocky's lawyer in court, saying, "You're annoying."
Yo, you're annoying, bro. Just come on. We didn't even get to the case. What are we doing here?
Damn.
Are you keeping up?
Or nah.
Stop. Are you keeping up with the question? I can't keep up with him. I can't take him serious. No.
And just think about that for a second. This is the same guy claiming that Rocky shot him. Instead of keeping his composure, he's lashing out like a little baby in the middle of a serious trial. Because believe it or not, when it comes to cases like this, credibility matters just as much as evidence. If the jury doesn't believe you, you've already lost. Meanwhile, Rocky, he sat there composed, professional, never letting the accusation shake him. And when you put that next to Relly
That is
acting
true.
out in court like a little baby, it only made the jury's decision even easier. And that's how ASAP Rocky ended up beating the case. Any thoughts on this topic? Don't forget to drop a like on this video for the algorithm.
Yeah. Also, guys, please let me know down below what y'all thought about this whole case with ASAP Rocky because when I first like heard this, I think I heard this a few years ago too. During that time, I was like, "This is really insane." But then, you know what else is insane too? The fact that he got freaking walked free. Of course, that's really what I was mostly shocked about. You know, I think that's what everybody else was shocked about too. So, guys, please let me know down below in the comments what was y'all thoughts about this as well. It's been boy Tollax. I'm out. Deuces.